The first time I saw that Bobcat kitten, I honestly just thought, cute. Then I realized, oh no. A tiny rescued Bobcat kitten with big eyes, big paws, and an oversized attitude arrived in our household and immediately made her presence known. She declared war on everything that moved, boldly playing with toys, humans, and animals far larger than herself. We named her Pepper, and she immediately declared war on everyone, including Hank, our border collie, who runs the house like a strict accountant. But when a spicy little wild predator the size of a potato meets a dog who only wants to follow the rules, the result isn't what you'd expect. Watch what happens when a tiny bobcat decides to take on a dog 10 times her size. Before we start, hit the like button and make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and hit that notification bell so that you won't miss any new stories. The first time I saw that bobcat kitten, I thought, oh, how cute. Oh no, that's a tiny knife set with whiskers. She came in wrapped in a towel like a burrito that hated being a burrito. The transport crate was still trembling from the ride, and the kitten inside it was making a sound that can only be described as a 2-ounce dragon trying to sue the world for emotional damages. Big eyes, big ears, bigger attitude. She looked like someone had taken Wild and shrunk it down to pocket size without shrinking the confidence. "We're calling her Pepper," my wife said, like she hadn't just introduced a creature that could file a complaint with her teeth. Pepper had been found that morning on the edge of a hayfield outside a small town in the Midwest. Thin, dehydrated, and yowling so loudly a mail carrier stopped and followed the sound. No mother bobcat appeared. No siblings. No sign of a den. Just this single fierce little spark of life, pressed against a culvert like she was guarding it, even though she barely had the strength to stand. The local wildlife officer brought her to us because we were licensed rehabbers, and our setup could handle neonates and orphaned kittens without turning it into a circus. Of course, the moment she arrived, Pepper immediately tried to turn it into a circus. We started the intake the way we always do. Quiet room, low light, minimal talking. You want an orphaned wild kitten to feel safe, not surrounded. I slipped on the thick gloves and gently lifted the towel. Pepper's whole body went stiff. Her ears flattened. Her mouth opened. And she hissed. I've been hissed at by adult raccoons, cornered opossums, angry hawks, and one particularly offended goose. None of them had the raw, personal conviction of Pepper's hiss. This was not a request. This was not an opinion. This was a declaration of war. It said, I don't know who you are, but I will ruin your legacy. She was trembling, but she was also trying to look taller, which is impressive when you are about the size of a baked potato. Okay, I murmured, as calm as I could. I hear you. Strong boundaries. Love that for you. Pepper answered by attempting to chew through my glove. We weighed her, checked her hydration, looked for fleas and injuries. She had a few scrapes on her nose like she'd been pushing through grass and brush, and she had that hollow, tired look around her eyes that breaks your heart if you let it. She was brave and scared at the same time, and that combination can make a wild animal seem spicy, but it's really just survival. She needed warmth first. We set up a small quarantine enclosure, soft bedding, a heating pad under half the space so she could choose her comfort zone, a hide box, and a plush toy for contact comfort. A bobcat kitten isn't a house cat. She's not a pet, and she's not meant to be cuddled like one. But orphaned babies need the feeling of being close to something, even if it's a stuffed animal that looks like it shops at the clearance aisle. Then came the formula. That's when the border collie arrived at the doorway. His name is Hank. Hank is the kind of border collie who looks like he has a clipboard, a schedule, and a deep disappointment in everyone else's time management. He has a job in his own head. He supervises. He counts heads. He checks doors. He watches the yard like a security guard who also does taxes. The moment Hank caught the scent of Pepper, his ears pricked forward and his whole body went into a perfectly controlled freeze, like a statue made of curiosity. "No," I told him quietly, because in our house, no is not a harsh word. It's a steering wheel. "This is quarantine." Hank sat down immediately. He didn't move a paw. He didn't whine. He stared at me like, "I understand the word quarantine. I have feelings about it. I will be filing a report." Pepper saw him. Her reaction was educational. Her back puffed up. Her tail got twice as large. Her head lowered. Her eyes widened. And then she did that classic wild kitten thing where she tried to look terrifying while also clearly considering sprinting to another state. Hank tilted his head. Pepper hissed again, so aggressively it sounded like she was leaking air. Hank blinked slowly, as if Pepper had just said something in French. I stepped between them. "Hank, buddy, not today." Hank's gaze flicked to my hands, to the bottle, to Pepper, back to me, and I could almost see the gears turning. New baby, smells like cat, not cat, small, angry, possibly a demon, understood. Pepper, meanwhile, stared at Hank like he was a suspiciously polite mountain. The first feeding didn't go smoothly. Pepper didn't know what the bottle was. She didn't trust it. She batted at it with tiny paws that carried the full confidence of a heavyweight boxer. She snapped at the nipple, then cried because the nipple fought back by being rubber. When she finally latched, she drank like she hadn't eaten in days, because she probably hadn't. Her little body relaxed in my gloved hands, and that was the first time I felt the knot in my chest loosen. Hunger is fear's best friend. You can't build trust with a stomach that's panicking. Pepper finished the bottle and promptly attempted to climb my sleeve like I was a tree. Not for cuddles, for escape. I gently eased her back into the enclosure. She stomped into her hide box and glared out through the doorway like a tiny landlord who was unhappy with the property inspection. Hank sat outside the room for an hour. Just sat there. Every few minutes, he'd sigh like a man waiting in a DMV line. If someone walked past him, he'd lift his eyebrows as if to say, "You see this? I am being excluded from operations." I'll admit it. I laughed. There's something about a border collie's emotional honesty that makes you feel both seen and judged. That first afternoon, Pepper discovered toys. We gave her a small plush ball and a crinkly mouse. The ball was supposed to be gentle enrichment. The mouse was supposed to encourage playful behavior without overstimulating her. Pepper looked at the ball, paused, then launched herself at it like it had insulted her mother. She tackled it, bunny kicked it, bit it, threw it, pounced again, then dragged it into the hide box like she'd successfully hunted a wildebeest. Then she emerged from the hide box and immediately tried to fight the mouse. The mouse did not survive the emotional experience. Pepper's confidence surged and crashed in waves. One minute she was the fiercest predator in North America. The next she'd startle at a floorboard creak and flatten herself behind the hide box like she'd evaporate if she stayed still enough. That's normal. That's a wild baby learning the rules of a new world. A rehab environment has to balance safety with not turning a wild animal into a pet. We keep handling to a minimum. We keep the environment calm. We let them be wild, even if being wild currently looks like overreacting to a sock. At about 3 p.m., Pepper discovered the concept of tail. Not her tail. Hank's tail. Now Hank had been kept separate the whole time. But the quarantine room had a baby gate across the doorway for airflow and visibility, and I'd allowed Hank to watch from the hall because he was calm and we were monitoring Pepper's stress level. Pepper approached the gate cautiously, belly low, feet quiet. She stared through the slats. Hank stared back, unblinking. Pepper took one step closer. Hank's tail made a slow, friendly wag. Pepper's pupils blew wide. She dropped into a crouch. And then, without a single warning, she did the wiggle. If you've ever seen a wildcat's hindquarters shimmy before a pounce, you know it's both adorable and deeply serious. Pepper looked like a tiny, fuzzy spring loading itself. Hank's expression changed to mild concern. Pepper launched. She hit the baby gate like a fluffy missile and bounced backward in shock, as if the gate had betrayed her personally. She sat down hard and stared at the gate. Hank leaned forward, sniffed through the slats, then sat back. Pepper hissed at the gate. The gate, as usual, remained unemotional. My wife walked in at that moment, took in the scene. Pepper sitting like a furious marshmallow, Hank looking like a disappointed teacher, and she whispered, "Is she mad at the gate?" "Apparently the gate is part of the conspiracy," I said. Pepper tried again. This time she stalked Hank's wagging tail with the concentration of a bomb technician. Hank's tail swished. Pepper's head followed it, left to right, like she was watching tennis. Then Pepper reached a tiny paw through the slats and swiped. Hank froze. Pepper swiped again. Hank looked at me like, I am being attacked by a dust bunny. Pepper's paw retracted. She sat back. She blinked rapidly. She appeared shocked that her own actions had consequences. Hank, bless him, slowly wagged again, softer this time, as if he were trying to speak peace. Pepper very slowly leaned forward and touched Hank's tail with one toe bean, the way you might test whether a pot is hot. Hank stayed still. Pepper touched it again. Then she pounced through the slats and grabbed as much tail as physics allowed her to grab, which was not much, but she made up for it with attitude. Hank yelped, not in pain, but in surprise, and hopped backward like he'd just been slapped by a napkin. Pepper fluffed up, scandalized at his movement, and hissed like, "How dare you react to my choices?" Hank stared at her. Pepper stared at him. And then, unexpectedly, Pepper chirped. It was a small sound, a baby bobcat vocalization, part squeak, part question, the kind of sound that says, "What are you? Are you scary? Are you food? Are you friend?" Hank's ears softened. He lowered his head slightly, offering calm. Pepper didn't hiss that time. She didn't pounce either. Instead, she turned her head, pretending she hadn't cared at all, and strutted back into her hide box like she was bored by the whole ordeal. I exhaled a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. Those first introductions, scent, sight, sound, matter. And Hank, for all his seriousness, was being exactly what Pepper needed. Predictable. The evening brought a new challenge: dinner. Pepper had graduated from formula only to formula plus appropriate soft foods. Meat-based kitten food thinned for easy swallowing. She ate like a tiny machine with an empty fuel tank. Hank, unfortunately, has never met a creature eating a meal he didn't consider a community event. We fed Hank in the kitchen, Pepper in quarantine. Separate, always. But the moment Hank finished, he marched to the baby gate and sat down. Pepper licked her lips. She approached the gate. She sniffed. Then she did something that made all of us laugh so hard we had to hold onto the counter. Pepper stood up on her hind legs and pressed her little paws against the gate like a child looking into a bakery window. She stared at Hank. Hank stared back. Pepper opened her mouth and made a noise that sounded like a rusty hinge. It was not a hiss. It was not a growl. It was a demand. The Bobcat kitten was asking for Hank's dinner. "Ma'am," my wife said in her best customer service voice, "your order is not available." Pepper slapped the gate. Hank looked at me like, "She's negotiating." Pepper slapped the gate again, harder, then turned and stomped back to her bowl, ate 3 bites, returned to the gate, slapped it again, and glared at Hank as if he was personally hoarding resources. Hank, in a moment of pure dog logic, brought his empty bowl to the gate and set it down. Pepper stared at the bowl, confused. She leaned forward, sniffed it, and then, because Pepper has never been accused of caution, she licked it. The bowl tasted like nothing. Pepper's face looked offended by nothing. Hank wagged once, like, "See? We share. It is empty, but it is the thought that counts." Pepper hissed softly, which in Pepper language meant, "Your thought is useless." But then she did something else. She sat down near the gate, shoulder to shoulder with it, like she was choosing the spot on purpose. Not close enough to touch, not close enough to be vulnerable, but close enough to exist together. That's how trust starts with a wild animal. Not with petting, not with cuddling, with choices. With the animal deciding, "I can be here, and the world won't hurt me." Later, as the house quieted, Pepper had a moment that broke my heart. The comedy of the day had been loud. Her dramatic gate slaps, Hank's baffled expressions, the tail obsession, the tiny tornado play sessions. But when I checked on her before bed, I found her sitting in her hide box, eyes open, body still. She didn't pounce at me. She didn't hiss. She just watched. There's a look orphaned wildlife gets sometimes. It's not a sad face the way humans imagine it. It's more like a pause in the instinct-driven chaos. A moment where the baby's body remembers it's alone and it doesn't know why. I didn't reach in. I didn't try to soothe her with my hands. That wouldn't be right, and it wouldn't help her be wild later. But I did something rehabbers learn early. I lowered the lights, kept my voice soft, and made the environment feel steady. "You're safe tonight," I whispered. "That's all you have to do. Just be safe." Pepper's ears flicked. She blinked once, slow. Then she tucked her chin down against the plush toy and closed her eyes. Out in the hallway, Hank had been lying down like a sentry. When I stepped out, he lifted his head immediately. "She asleep?" my wife asked. "Yeah," I said. Finally. Hank stood up, walked to the baby gate and lay down facing it. Not pressed against it, just near, like he was keeping watch. I've seen dogs do remarkable things, but that quiet choice, Hank deciding to guard a creature that had tried to bite him through a gate all afternoon, hit me in a place deeper than laughter. Hank didn't need to understand Bobcat. He understood small, scared, and alone. That night, something happened that made the next morning easier. When Pepper woke up, she didn't scream at the universe right away. She stretched, paws extended, claws barely out. She yawned, showing those tiny teeth like pearls. Then she padded to the gate. Hank was already there, sitting like he'd been clocked in for hours. Pepper froze at the sight of him. and for a second, I thought we'd reset back to day one. Fear, hiss, puffed fur. But Pepper didn't puff. Instead, she made that soft chirp again. Hank wagged once, slow and respectful, like a bow. Pepper leaned forward and placed her paw against the gate. Hank leaned forward and sniffed the air. Pepper's paw slid down the slat and rested there, relaxed. Hank, in a move so gentle it made my throat tighten, laid down and rested his chin on his own paws, eyes half-lidded. Pepper stared at him for a long moment. Then, like she was trying it out to see if she could, Pepper sat down, right by the gate, not in attack posture, not in fear posture, just sitting. My wife whispered, "Look at them." And I did. A tiny rescued bobcat kitten, still wild, still wary, still a bundle of instincts and sharp edges, choosing, in her own cautious way, to share space with a dog who could swallow her head if he wanted to, but never would. Then Pepper stood up and did the funniest thing yet. She reached a paw through the slats, not to slap this time, not to grab tail. She touched Hank's paw, just a tap. Hank didn't move. Pepper tapped again. Hank's tail thumped once on the floor, a quiet little drumbeat. Pepper recoiled like, "Oh my gosh, the floor is alive!" Then immediately leaned back in and touched Hank's paw again. Braver. It was clumsy and ridiculous and tender all at once. Like watching two creatures negotiate a brand new language. That's the thing people don't always understand about wildlife rehab. They think it's all dramatic rescues and big releases. And yes, those moments happen, and they matter. But so much of it is this: small, quiet turning points. A fearful baby learning that not every large shape is a threat. A dog learning that gentleness can be a job too. A household learning to laugh through the chaos while still protecting the wildness of a wild animal. By the end of that second day, Pepper had gained a little weight. She was eating well, resting better, and saving most of her dramatic tantrums for appropriate times, like when the bottle was 2 degrees cooler than she preferred. Hank still watched her through the gate like a supervisor, but now his face looked less like concerned accountant and more like proud uncle. Pepper still had miscommunications. She would pounce at shadows and then scream at the shadows for existing. She would stalk Hank's tail again and forget the gate was there and bounce off it like a cartoon. She would attempt to sample anything anyone else ate, including a sock, a dog toy, and one time, the air. But beneath all that, a bond was forming. Not the kind of bond that turns a bobcat into a pet, but the kind that turns a scary world into a manageable one. And that's how fear softens. Not with forced closeness, not with human expectations, with patience, with predictability, with a border collie who reacts to a wild kitten's spicy protests by calmly lying down and saying, in the only way a dog can, "I'm not here to hurt you." Pepper wasn't tamed. She was still Pepper. Tiny predator, big personality, sharp opinions. She would grow up, get stronger, and with luck and proper rehab, one day return to a life she was built for. But for that first hilarious, exhausting, heart-tugging stretch of days, she had a safe den, warm food, and a dog who looked at her like she mattered. And sometimes, when the house went quiet and the lights went low, you could see it. A bobcat kitten curled up in her hide box, one ear angled toward the hallway, listening to the steady breathing of a border collie standing guard outside the gate. Not because anyone asked him to, because he chose to.